Do you think the Lakers make the playoffs?
Dan, I've been wrestling with this one for a while. I think so, but if you ask me to put a number of confidence on that, it's going to be very low. I mean, part of it is that the two teams that the Lakers are chasing absolutely loathe the Lakers. The Clippers and Kings. You know, you've covered the league. You know how much those two franchises and their fan bases just hate the Lakers and would like nothing more than to eliminate them specifically. So that's going to be quite a climb. I mean, I think they start off with these 5 road games. They got to go like 3-2 just to not fall so far back that they're looking at too much to overcome.
But didn't they preach patience at the beginning of the season, and then all of a sudden that changed when they got? It felt like they were getting nervous, and then they decide that they're going to go all in on Anthony Davis. And now you're sort of left with, the aftershocks here. And it feels like it's kind of an unsteady locker room. I got LeBron, who might not be in shape. I got Luke Walton on the hot seat there. And I got a bunch of young kids going, when do we get, not if we get traded, but when we get traded?
Well, now, yes, to answer your question, they did preach patience. And I thought, the injury changed. The injury to LeBron changed it all. I'm missing 18 games. Look, they were in 4th place in the West, Dan, when LeBron went out.
Yeah.
And LeBron's never missed this kind of time. So if we go back and look at those 18 games, or 15 of them with LeBron in the lineup, what are we looking at? We're not looking at them out in 10th place now. So I think the panic came because they fell out. And I don't see the need for the panic. I'm not one of those people who thinks that the supporting cast is inadequate for everything. If you can't tell me that if playing with if Ingram and Kuzma, let's take Ball out of the conversation for a second because now he's hurt. But if you put those guys in the lineup with LeBron for 18 more games, you can't tell me they're not better. I look at that lineup and I think, you know what? They're probably close to as good, if not as good, as the Cleveland cast of characters that LeBron won with last year. Okay, they got Kevin Love. That's the one place where you'd look at and say, okay, it's an upgrade, Cleveland over this lineup. Yes, they're young, but they knew that going in. So I'm with you on that you know this going in. And to me, LeBron is the one who, I don't know, seems like he was stunned by this. And he played against these guys. He knew what they were. So to me, there's a lot of, created drama, as our dear friend Mark Jackson would say, fake hustle, fake drama. I don't really understand why. I guess the injury is why. The injury, the missing 18 games is why the story, flipped itself.
You saw him at the All-Star game, All-Star weekend. I thought he looked, and I was trying to be polite, politically correct yesterday. He looked heavier. He looked like he was about 10 or 15 pounds heavier. He just doesn't look like LeBron, who started the season, or maybe even last season. Did you notice? I mean, he built more like Zion Williamson now.
Yeah, I didn't notice that as much as he's tired.
Okay.
And I don't mean tired from this season. He's tired. And he talked about, remember the post-game chat after the most recent game the Lakers played? And he said, I just got to get away from this for a while. And it sounds like those previous couple of years, he would go down to South Beach and disappear he can't do any of that. And so to me, I don't know, what I noticed when I'm looking at him is, okay, is he energized to the point where this is something he can do? And I tell you why I said this, a week or so ago, and I meant it. If I'm all those young Lakers, and I had to go through what I had to go through to hear all this trade stuff and Anthony Davis and we're not good enough, and there are 5 packages that the New Orleans Pelicans could take, and we're in all of them. I'd go to LeBron and say, hey, icon, lead us. Lead us. We've seen you take nothing teams, not just to the playoffs, but the finals. Lead us. I think they are good enough, but at every turn, it's how inadequate they are. I'm not saying they can beat Golden State. They can't. But I look at the West also has some flawed situations in there. Portland is they may have gotten better with some of these acquisitions. I don't know that Portland is good enough to win a couple of rounds in the playoffs. Denver is still a neophyte team. As terrific as half as they had, I'm not sure they're ready for that either. I mean, the Lakers, this group of Lakers as constituted ought to be better. And I think I really think, what were they, 16-10 when LeBron went out?
Yeah.
That him being out as long as he was out, that to me, Dan, is something that, I don't know. I'm not going to say it didn't need to happen because I'm not one who questions injuries. I just don't. But that to me is what has put them in this position.
Talking to Michael Wilbon, pardon the interruption, co-host, joining us, Dan Patrick Show. I'm also wondering about this, and I'm big into body language, and I noticed this at the All-Star game and the shoot-arounds. It felt like everybody had a buddy. LeBron didn't have a buddy. And I wonder, he knows the clock is ticking, and he's got to get somebody in, at least one star in this offseason, if not two. And who are those one or two stars going to be?
Now, you sound like you believe in the Kevin Durant theory, Dan, that nobody wants to play with LeBron. It's interesting. I don't think it has to be any specific person. I mean, look, I love Anthony Davis. And I'm predisposed to liking him anyway, being a Chicago guy, as I am. I love Anthony Davis. I'm not trading the whole team for him. I mean, this is not like trading for Kareem in 1970, four or whatever the Lakers traded with the Bucks. This isn't that. I mean, Anthony Davis he's a wonderful player. A whole team worth. And so I don't know who that guy's going to be. I do feel this way though. I know the narrative is switched and who's going to play with LeBron, and maybe people don't want to play with him. I believe that enough people will want to play with LeBron. It's going to have to take place, obviously, this summer. They couldn't do it before the trade deadline.
Yeah.
And I think we should have known that going in. It was going to be really difficult to pull off a mega trade at the deadline. And I realized that, Rich Paul was trying to, make that happen by putting public pressure on New Orleans to do it. But there's a lot of free guys. And even if they don't, Dan, even if they're scared of playing with LeBron, even if there's some nervousness about that, it's the Lakers. That's the place, warm weather cities, that's where guys go. California is where guys are going to want to go. What combination? I don't know. But that's what Magic Johnson and LeBron have to get done as soon as they're eliminated from this season, whenever that is.
Would you rather have Anthony Davis or Klay Thompson on the Lakers?
If you told me I could just add Klay Thompson and keep some of the other parts, I might do that. Klay Thompson and somebody else. I'm not sure who the somebody else would be necessarily, but suppose that somebody else was Boogie Cousins. I mean, it doesn't have to be Durant, Kyrie, or Anthony Davis. I don't believe that.
Yeah.
Okay, those guys are great. They're all great. They have 3 championships between them. So if it was Klay Thompson and that allowed me still to Klay Thompson right now, Dan, it sounds like you and I agree on this. I just think he's maybe the most underrated player in the league the last 3 years. Because people start listing all the Golden State players and they start putting Klay Thompson like 4th. I'm like, hold on. I mean, and I realize you're definitely going to put him behind Durant and Steph, but Klay Thompson is a hell of a player. I'm like you. If they had him and given that specific skill set, I might rather have him in combination with somebody else.
If you could place Zion Williamson as the commissioner for the good of the league, where would you place him?
Well, everybody wants me to say New York. The league functions just fine with the Knicks being a dog. The league has functioned just fine with the Knicks being a dog for most of the last 23 years. So I'm not necessarily going to say New York. I mean, I got my own bias. I'd love to see him in Chicago. I'd love to see him, go to a place where there's been a little more, not much more recent success, but some. They've gotten to the conference finals. But in terms of like the bad teams, the teams that we know are going to be in the lottery, is there some place in there that's just irresistible? Is there a small market situation? I don't know. I mean, if he goes to the Knicks, Dan, I'm not going to be upset because the Knicks are so bad it's warranted. Here's where I don't want to see him. I don't want to see him in Cleveland because Cleveland's had 4 overall number ones, and they don't have any of them. LeBron, Kyrie, Wiggins, and the kid from Vegas.
But what is there a domino effect that could happen? Let's say the Knicks win the lottery.
Right.
Then all of a sudden, if you're Kyrie and or Kevin Durant, does that make it a little more enticing?
A lot more.
Okay.
A lot more.
Yeah,
it makes it a lot more. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting to be in Charlotte this past weekend. And just, the previous week, I was in Southern California doing some studio things. I also got a chance to go to a couple of games. And, the reason this whole thing popped up during the Anthony Davis crazy talk was that players and coaches and agents and people in the NBA, Dan, believe, a lot of them, and help fuel the fire about who's going to New York.
Yeah. And
all the Kevin Durant and Kyrie talk. That stuff didn't cut. It wasn't just like media generated. It was generated into the dissemination came through us. But there are people talking openly about it, which means where'd they get it? And you know what a gossip league the NBA is.
Yeah.
I mean, much more so to me than the other leagues. The NBA thrives on that. Does it mean that everything is true? No, it doesn't. But it does mean that this talk was generated from people who have conversations, who are on the court and in locker rooms and in proximity to those guys.
Oh, well, I said the last time you were on that KD was not going to L.A. because he doesn't want – he thinks he's the best player in the game, and he might be the best player in the game. He doesn't want to help LeBron's legacy, and that's why I said that I think he's done with Golden State. He doesn't want to be the villain. He ruined basketball for a few years. He can go to New York. Maybe Kyrie is good. And I go back to when I went to the premiere of Uncle Drew. KD came in, and he sat right behind us because he's best friends with Kyrie Irving. He's not even in the movie, and he went to the premiere, Mike. Like
appearances,
yeah.
Right? Keep them up. Listen. The thing that I've heard, Dan, is just again from people who share court space and time, and it could be opponents aren't opponents anymore. These guys don't hate each other by and large. Just the opposite. The thing I hear is that both of them, that Kyrie and Kevin, and I'm sure you talked about this in previous shows, that they don't feel that the championships they won are theirs, belong to them primarily. And that's what the preoccupation with doing it somewhere else is. Winning somewhere else because that would be their championship. And so, look, there's a lot of time. I don't spend a lot of time insisting I know what the guys are going to go. It's like looking at poll numbers in August and trying to tell me what's going to happen November 4th. I mean, that I don't necessarily believe in that. But there's so much smoke. There's so much smoke, and I like you start thinking, okay, what is it that these guys are thinking? And I know other players are thinking about this. So do you think there's a cold envelope, to go back to a reference from yesteryear? Is there a cold envelope, Dan? Is there something that is he going to be in that Knicks jersey? Zion, that is.
Mike, I was at that lottery.
I know you were.
I was at that lottery. I covered that draft, and I just remember everybody was like, he's got to go to the Knicks. He's got to go to the Knicks. And all of a sudden, Patrick Ewing goes to the Knicks. And I've been around the commissioner, Commissioner Stern. Do not go there with the commissioner.
Oh, I know.
You can't even
joke about it. You cannot joke about it. I know we both tried.
Yeah, you just envelope, feels a little cold. And then he'll give you the cold shoulder there with something like that.
Where do you want to see him?
Durant?
No, Zion.
I'd like to see him in New York. I not that owner deserves.
He absolutely does not deserve.
But I just want to see the Garden come back because I know what it was, and there's like 2 generations that don't even know what it was like.
Yes.
And if you had the seismic shift of the NBA would be New York, Philly, and Boston again, and you would still have Golden State and maybe the Lakers a little bit, but you'd almost be coming back, to the 70s and 80s where you had these teams that were in contention. And if I could get Zion in New York, because I would tune in to watch Zion play.
Yeah, we're going to watch, but we're going to watch him almost, no matter where he goes. I just thought, by the way, about the Lakers with the combination. Suppose they were to get Tobias Harris and Klay Thompson. Again, so there's no blockbuster. The news is less than blockbuster, right?
Yeah.
But suppose they put those guys in the lineup, and they could still trade a couple of pieces because they'd have still 4 guys you could trade. I mean, they have crazy flexibility still. Again, I don't think you have to go and have Anthony Davis if you're the Lakers to get back in. Serious contention. Given what we've seen, I know LeBron's going to be older. But New York, if you have the Garden, I was there. I loved it. My team always took the Knicks out 4 times. 4 times, Michael Jordan. And by the way, don't think when people ask Jordan about his career life highlights, and they mention different dunks or this championship or Utah the last shot, the people don't seem to understand. And I haven't even asked him this lately. But one of the great highlights, if not the best, given his love of the Garden and playing there, was just taking out the Knicks 4 times, I think, with 3 different coaches. He took Van Gundy out. He took Riley out. He took, I don't know, was it Nelly? I don't even know who else he took out.
And he remembers every single one of them.
Every single one of them, yeah.
Yeah. Hey, tell Tony we said hello. Good to catch up with you again, Mike. We appreciate your time as always, buddy.
No, man, I appreciate you.
All right, Michael Wilbon. Pardon the interruption. If you missed any of our celebrity interviews this week from the Mercedes-AMG Man Cave, go to the Dan Patrick Show app. You can watch and listen from inside the Mercedes-AMG Man Cave. Mercedes-AMG, driving performance.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV or download the Dan Patrick Show app.